Hi, everyone, and welcome. I think we're going to get started now. My name is John, or JP DeWitt. I manage the Social Science Data Analysis Network at the University of Michigan's Population Study Center. We're excited to bring you today's presentation on diversitydatakids.org as part of our PIPS webinar series. Before we get started, I just wanted to cover a few quick items. All right, first, if you have any issues during today's webinar, please use the chat panel, which likely appears on either the top or right of your screen, to send me a message. Also, the speakers have planned to reserve some time for questions, so please feel free to use the Q&A panel that you should also see either at the top or the right to send us your questions. You can do that at any time, but we will hold off until a bit later in the session to answer them. I'd also like to give a quick background on my organization. This webinar is part of the Programs in the Population Sciences project at the Social Science Data Analysis Network. We typically go by the acronyms of PIPS and SSDAN. We are housed within the Population Studies Center at the University of Michigan's Institute for Social Research. Although this webinar is aimed at instructors, PIPS is a resource both for instructors and their students who may be interested in pursuing graduate studies or careers in the population sciences. On the PIPS website, we have highlighted various graduate programs available and information on how to apply to those. We also post deadlines and links for those graduate programs and a range of relevant internships and entry-level positions. So on that website, you can find all sorts of internships and entry-level positions and the deadlines that may be relevant to your students. And those are at pips.ssdan.net. PIPS is part of a larger program at the Social Science Data Analysis Network, or SSDAN. SSDAN was started in the mid-1990s by Director William Fry, who is a research professor at the University of Michigan and a senior fellow at the Brookings Institution. SSDAN aims to make data more accessible for use in education, especially at the undergraduate level. That brings me to why we were so eager to host a webinar with diversitydatakids.org. As you'll see, the resource makes accessing a wide variety of data easy and engaging. They have maps, charts, tables, and rankings that can easily be adapted for classroom use or assigned to the students to use. We have two fantastic members of their team with us today. First is Dr. Lindsay Rosenfeld, who is a social epidemiologist with research, practice, and policy interests at the intersection of health and non-health factors, particularly related to children and families. She specializes in child equity work related to education and early childhood development, neighborhoods, housing, the built environment, immigration and migration, and health literacy, among others. Dr. Rosenfeld is a scientist and lecturer with the Institute for Child, Youth, and Family Policy. You'll see ICYFP several times, and that is at Brandeis University's Heller School for Social Policy and Management. She's also an adjunct assistant professor at Northeastern University's Institute on Urban Health Research and Practice, as well as a scholar in health literacy studies at the T.H. Chan Harvard School of Public Health. Dr. Rosenfeld is a project director of the Early Childhood Comprehensive Systems Collaborative Improvement and Innovation Network. I got that right. She has taught graduate and undergraduate courses on epidemiology, biostatistics, population health, child health and well-being, and many more. Okay, if I understood her bio correctly, I believe she also taught second grade in Compton, California. She works on several projects at ICYFP, including Child Equity and Policy with the diversitydatakids.org project. Dr. Rosenfeld earned her bachelor's degree in women's studies from Brown University and both her master's degree and doctorate in public health from the Harvard School of Public Health. Our second presenter we have today is Ms. Nancy McArdle, who is a researcher and author with over 25 years experience analyzing housing policy and demographics, migration and settlement patterns, racial segregation, and the intersection between civil rights and opportunity. Currently, she is a senior research analyst with the diversitydata.org, a website enabling analysis of a wide range of socioeconomic, demographic, and neighborhood indicators by race, ethnicity for all metropolitan areas in the U.S. That is not to be confused with her similar role on the focus of today, the DiversityDataKids.org project, focusing more intensely on opportunities for children across a wide range of geographic areas. Ms. McArdle graduated from Carnegie Mellon and received a Master's of Public Policy from Harvard University's Kennedy School of Government. She was a research analyst at the Joint Center for Housing Studies at Harvard University and research director of the Harvard Civil Rights Project's Metro Boston Equity Initiative. Ms. McArdle has authored and co-authored a wide range of publications and books on race, segregation, and integration. She's developed and taught programs at several Boston area universities. She's also served as an expert witness in housing and school segregation cases. I'd like to thank both of our excellent speakers today for taking the time to present, and with that, I will turn things over to them. Thank you very much.
Hello, JP, thank you so much for those very kind introductions. We are very happy to be here today talking to you about DiversityDataKids.org, and we're really looking forward to your questions and the discussion about using the site in teaching. So I'm going to share our screen. Thanks for your patience. All right. So I will begin, and then I will hand this over to my colleague Nancy about midway through. So today we really want to focus on one aspect of work that you can uncover with the site. So we'll be focusing on children's access to opportunity and talking about neighborhood opportunity and child well-being and how we can use the site to focus on this topic for teaching. So as we get started, we'd love for you to chat in your role and what you teach and where, just so that we all can get to know each other a bit. So please feel free to do that as I begin. So today we will be giving you an overview of DiversityDataKids.org. Then we will be specifically diving into using the site for teaching and focusing on one feature of the site, the Child Opportunity Index. And then, as I said, we'll have plenty of time for questions and discussion. So to begin, what is DDK? That's what we often call the project, DiversityDataKids.org, DDK. DiversityDataKids.org is a state-of-the-art research project designed to meet the urgent need for a national integrated information source that helps us understand three major things. One, who are our children? And we do that, try to understand that by documenting and tracking the rapidly changing demographics of children and families in the United States. Second question being, what our children need, looking at what is it that our children need, and we do this by establishing a system for monitoring not only child outcomes, but also key factors such as opportunities, conditions, and resources that drive child outcomes. And thirdly, we want to ask and understand how do we improve opportunities for all children, especially those that may need the most help, and we do this by focusing explicitly and rigorously on issues of racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic equity in child health and well-being. So first here, I want to give you a sense, this is a screenshot, you will see this site live in just a little bit, of what Diversity Data Kids looks like when you get to the site. And really the site is organized in these three meta-knowledge areas or knowledge gaps. So one, you may focus on what do the numbers tell us about the state of child equity in the United States. And there's a number of ways to do that, either by, as you see on the left, selecting a profile, a ranking, or a map. I will show you a little more detail about all of those things. The second area is looking at what is the state of equity of neighborhood opportunity for children. That's what we'll be focusing most of our time today on, our Child Opportunity Index or our Child Opportunity Maps. And then the third area, really looking at key policy areas that can address inequities and asking what's helping or what's hurting by the policy equity assessment process that we have developed. So just to give you a sampling before we dive just a bit into this quick overview of the site, just to get a sense, we have indicators all provided by race ethnicity across these categories, demographics, education, health, neighborhoods, economic status, and we have them available at multiple levels of geography, but not necessarily all indicators at the same levels of geography. So to start a little deeper dive on our profiles, You see that you can get to that right from the home page of the site. And you'll see that our profiles, you may choose indicators. Here you can see an example of the Detroit metro area, and we are selecting 2 of 271 indicators that are available for this metro area. And here you can see from this information that we are understanding school poverty and race. So here we can see that 45% of Black children in Detroit metro are poor, but we also see that the average school poverty rate for Black kids is 76%. And likewise, this issue of double jeopardy, so we have Black kids who live in a high poverty neighborhood, that's about 70%. So we can see that these two issues are drastically out of proportion with the percentage of kids Black kids that live in the Detroit metro area. So for our rankings, these allow us to sort and rank data so that we can compare. So for example, if we look at large cities and we click down to an indicator of child poverty and we click down to children in poverty, the rate of children in poverty by race, ethnicity, we can look at large cities, and you can see that list here, and we can see the ranking. So we see that Detroit is ranked number 12 as far as area poverty rates for Black children. And we can see the comparison for white children, Hispanic children, and Asian children, and get a sense of the difference by race and ethnicity for kids in the Detroit metro area, and then see that against other large cities. For maps, we can visualize all aspects of data geographically. So here, for example, we can see national patterns in low birth weight rates for Hispanic mothers, both native and foreign born. And so we can see the difference. You can see on the left, there's a red circle around native born, and we can compare that with foreign born to get a sense geographically and visually of what the low birth weight births are as a share of births by race and ethnicity here, specifically Hispanic native born and Hispanic foreign born. We can also look, for example, and understand comparisons between counties. We can have a benchmark to our national, and we can explore patterns for nativity subgroups. Our child opportunity maps, I won't spend much time on this here because we will go into detail on that in just a few minutes. But again, those really allow us to map the geography of opportunity for children, to understand the state of equity for children. Our policy equity assessments that really allow us to look at policy areas that are addressing inequities and understand more deeply what might be helping or what might be hurting. These equity assessments are developed by looking at 3 main areas. What is the logic of a policy and why does it matter for equity? What is the capacity of a policy and why does it matter for equity? And what is the research evidence and why does that matter for equity? So really to break apart, what was the impetus behind the policy? What is the capacity to actually meet that original stated goal? And then what evidence do we have that this is working, quote unquote, specifically looking at equity? So this is just a view of one of our policy equity assessments that focuses on Head Start. And so you'll see that in those tabs, we have logic, capacity, and research evidence, and we really dig deep. So for example, on capacity, who's eligible for Head Start? Who participates in Head Start? How does Head Start track program quality? And then you'll see on the right part of that screenshot, we have figures and items that we call points of interest that really delve into specific pieces of each section, logic, capacity, or research evidence. And then along with these equity assessments, we've developed relevant policy indicators. So here you can see, for example, on our Head Start policy equity assessment, we have a number of indicators that allow us to look at data. For example, the number of Head Start income eligible children, and we can look by race, and we can look by ethnicity. Also on the site, we have an extensive library that captures all kinds of items, including peer-reviewed publications, including data analysis that we've done here at the site, including conferences or presentations that are relevant to the work that we're developing. So this is an example of some of our data for action fact sheets. So you can see here on the left, we've done a deep dive into children in double jeopardy, and we're really looking at, do children in U.S. metropolitan areas live in double jeopardy neighborhoods? And we have various types of information about vulnerability and neighborhood types, and we look, for example, on this one, we see that data shows a high prevalence of double jeopardy, particularly among young Black, Hispanic, and American Indian children. We also have one-pagers on our Child Opportunity Index, and we'll be focusing deeply on that in just a few minutes. And these 25 fact sheets were developed for 25 of the metro areas, looking at visuals and narrative text that really summarize the main child opportunity equity patterns that we see in these particular metro areas. So now I know that was quick and dirty, but we wanted to give you just a little bit of sense of all of the options that there are for looking at data and analyses on the site, all of which are rich for teaching opportunities. But for today, we're really going to focus in on the Child Opportunity Index, what that is and how we might use that in teaching. So we plan to go through these 4 main points, much like you might in a lesson plan or in a unit, right? So we're going to think about posing concepts and what kinds of concepts we might be able to pose using the site, supplemented by other peer-reviewed material you might assign, or textbook assignments, or a novel, or a memoir, or whatever it is that you're using to really build the understanding around the issues that you're presenting. Then we'll talk about creating questions and hypotheses using the site. Then we'll talk about testing the hypotheses, and that's where we'll really dig into how to use the Child Opportunity Index. And then we'll talk about some ideas for explaining findings using all of these points. So the Child Opportunity Index was developed by Diversity Data Kids in collaboration with the Kirwan Institute, and these are just giving you a little visual on some of the mapping possibilities that there are using the index. So what is child neighborhood opportunities? So we look at that as the context of neighborhood-based opportunities that influence children's health and development. The Child Opportunity Index itself is a measure of relative opportunity across all neighborhoods. For example, here census tracts in a metropolitan area. Each neighborhood is assessed relative to the geography of opportunity in its metropolitan area. So these are the components of the index. We have 3 major areas: educational opportunities, health and environmental opportunities, and social and economic opportunities. Together, they make the index, the Child Opportunity Index. They are also, you can also look at them as subcomponents or sub-indices. The interpretation of this index, the final opportunity index for each census tract, is based on the non-weighted average of all Z-scores for all indicators by category. And therefore, the corresponding level of opportunity, whether it's very low, high, very high, is determined by sorting all census tracts into quintiles based on their opportunity index scores. So what does this allow? It allows an overlay of a population, so for example, child population by race, ethnicity, and it really allows us to see where children are and where they are not. So in posing concepts, when I've used Diversity Data Kids in my teaching, I've really focused on 2 pieces, especially when we use the Child Opportunity Index. We could focus on many more, but this is just one example. So the basis of the index has 2 conceptual foundations, and that's often where I focus, on the access to opportunity and how that matters, and talking about that specifically for kids, and talking about that specifically by race, ethnicity. So defining opportunity as a situation or condition that places individuals in a position to be more likely to succeed or excel. And then really looking at these neighborhood-based opportunity structures and thinking about them as pathways to success in this matter of opportunity, in this opportunity or being in a position to succeed or excel. And also at the foundation is this idea of a systems perspective, right? That we're all nested within systems. So this is a graphic that I've developed in some of my work that I find useful in teaching with that at its core. So we have the idea across the bottom of the life course, and that there is a life course progression, and that depending on our age or where we are in a number of different situations, it'll affect us differently, right? So I help really situate students. Are we looking at that 0 to 3? Are we looking at primary school? Where in that continuum of life course are we focusing? And then I really use this to help focus in on the social determinants of health, so such that each bubble is an example. This is not an exhaustive iteration of those determinants, but helps us to think about what are the determinants at the child level that affect, for example, early childhood development? What are those determinants at the family level, the community level, and the policy level, and so on? And you can see also that this issue of levels and systems within systems is very important, and that's taken from the socio-ecological model. And then we have these sort of branches in between, right, that help us think about the connections between these systems. So after using Diversity Data Kids and other sources to really focus in what is this idea of neighborhood opportunity, what creates opportunity, how are neighborhoods structured, we really get into discussion about creating some questions and hypotheses by maybe posing a question about, what do you think of when you think of children's neighborhoods? You know, in these pictures here are some examples, right? We may think of the housing, we may think of individual children in those places, we may get a picture in our map of a map, like you see here, of Metro Milwaukee. Maybe that's how we picture children's neighborhoods, or kids in school situations, or outside playing, or what have you, and really just generate discussion around these pictures of children's neighborhoods and hypothesizing, you know, what is it about neighborhoods, what is it about kids, and how do these things interact, right? So we may propose some broad questions, things like, are neighborhood structure, social organization, and institutional capacity related? How are they related? You know, we begin garnering our thinking and our connections based on what we've read and the discussions we start having in class. Something like, can institutional capacity, maybe, for example, social service interactions, mitigate the effects of structural disadvantage, right? And so we'll be posing these concepts and really generating these sort of broad concepts around those issues, and then getting them to tackle some more specific questions and hypotheses that will help us answer these larger questions, right? Sort of proof of concept. So we might say, well, how is child opportunity structured in the 100 largest metros? And then maybe we dig a little deeper. How is child opportunity structured in Metro Milwaukee? Are children of different races, ethnicities distributed equally across lower opportunity neighborhoods, or does it differ in some way? And then I'll ask us to come together and think about hypotheses, or perhaps individually, depending on what we're doing. So for example, someone might say, no, child opportunity is not structured by place based on X, Y, and Z. You know, their hypothesis is that children of different races, ethnicities are distributed relatively equally across lower opportunity neighborhoods. And we'll have that discussion. And then, where I've used Diversity Data Kids to really push on this kind of iteration of and then trying to understand these questions and hypotheses, is in testing these hypotheses. Because certainly we can test them in a way or discuss them in a way from the literature that we've assigned or the discussions we're having or whatnot. But this really gives some really hands-on, concrete data skills and visualizations and ability to compare numbers to test those kinds of hypotheses we're generating. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Nancy McArdle, and she's going to dig in on how we test the hypotheses and how we use the Child Opportunity Index on the Diversity Data Kids site to do that.
Thank you, Lindsay. So in order to test these hypotheses about the geography of child opportunity and also demonstrate the uses and capacities of the Child Opportunity Index, we're going to address that overall question of how is child opportunity structured in the 100 largest metropolitan areas by looking at one particular metro, Metro Milwaukee. And in particular, we're going to look at how is child opportunity structured spatially in Metro Milwaukee, and are children of different races and ethnicities distributed equally across higher or lower opportunity neighborhoods. At this point, I'm going to click into the live online version of Diversity Data Kids so you can see each of the steps needed to make and analyze child opportunity maps. This is the Diversity Data Kids homepage, and from the top menu, you're going to choose Child Opportunity Maps. Before we actually select one of the metro areas to analyze, I want to draw your attention to this link right here where it says, for more details on the Opportunity Index, click here. If you were to click there, it would open our technical documentation, which gives you all that you would need to know about the construction of the underlying index, its validity, and the 19 component indicators that make it up, as well as a frequently asked questions section. If you're planning to use the Child Opportunity Index for teaching, I encourage you to take a look and learn more about the background of how it's constructed. But now we're going to move on to actually look at some maps specifically. We have these maps for the 100 largest metropolitan areas. You're going to make your selection from the state where the metropolitan area is located, primarily. So to look at Milwaukee, we want to click on Wisconsin. and then we'll pick Milwaukee. And this opens up the initial view of the Child Opportunity Map. I'm going to make this just a little bit bigger. Here we have the Milwaukee metropolitan area and the Child Opportunity Map. You can see it's color-coded with its level of opportunity in each census tract. So the dark red color indicates highest, very high levels of opportunity, down to the yellow color indicating very low areas of opportunity. Each of these different areas or polygons is a census tract. A census tract is a small subdivision of a county of approximately 4,000 people that usually covers a contiguous area and is used for census reporting of data. One of the things you can do even at this level before we customize the map is to click onto one of the census tracts, or sometimes I'll use the word neighborhood. That will bring up a pop-up that shows you for that particular tract, what's the tract identification number, that's the Federal Information Processing Code number, and then for that tract, what is the level of opportunity, the category of opportunity, in terms of our overall opportunity index, in this case very high, being shown in the dark red color, and the levels for each of the three sub-indices, educational opportunity, health and environment, and social and economic opportunity. I want to show you just a few more things at this level with what you can do with the map even before we customize it. You can print the map. You can share it using a wide range of different social networking sharing tools. You can save the image as a PNG or graphics file and then import it into another program. And you can also get most of the underlying data. If you were to click on Get Data, it would open up a screen that would allow you to select the metropolitan area you're interested in and then download an Excel sheet. And in that Excel sheet, it will give you for every census tract in the metropolitan area information on the opportunity category, ranging from very low to very high for that census tract, for the overall index, and each of the three main sub-indices. Not only will you get the category, you'll get the opportunity score, which is developed before those scores are then split into 5 quintiles. You also get disease scores for each of the 19 underlying opportunity indicators. Those disease scores allow you to see to what extent does the conditions in that tract, for example, the poverty level of that tract, differ from the average poverty level in the metropolitan area as a whole. And lastly, it'll give you information on the number of children by race and ethnicity in that particular tract. This data can be used for statistical analysis, for digging into more specific data for an individual tract or group of tracts, or it can be used to be imported into another mapping program if that's something of interest to you or your students. And just one more thing before we dive into customizing the map, I wanted to show at the bottom, right underneath the map, are 2 tutorials. There's a video tutorial and a PDF or text tutorial that's available for you in case you need to review any of the things I'm going to teach you today. I encourage you to take a look at them if you want to review and remind yourself of what you're learning right now. Okay. In order to explore the geography of various child populations and how that corresponds with the geography of opportunity, we need to customize the map. I click on Customize Map. And what that does is it opens up an online version of ArcGIS, ArcGIS Online. ArcGIS is one of the most popular geographic information systems. Here we see, once again, the opportunity maps. Remember, if you click on any particular census tract, it'll bring up a pop-up that will show you the opportunity categories for that tract. In order to add or to change map layers, we're going to click on the middle Content button right here. Currently, the Legend button is turned on, but we're going to click on Content and then the name of the metropolitan area. This will list the different layers that can be overlaid onto the map. The first several layers are all the child population layers, which shows you the number of children in each census tract. Right now, none of them are turned on. Below that, we have the opportunity layers. You can see the only thing that's checked is the overall child opportunity index, which is what we're seeing on the screen. But you can also look at any of the 3 sub-indices as well. So for right now, I'm going to click off the overall index and click on the educational index. And you can see it differs a little bit from the overall index. You can look at any of the 3 subdomains as well. Now, one of the things I definitely want to caution you about, the program will not prohibit you from physically clicking on more than one opportunity layer, but you should not do that. Definitely do not click on more than one layer at a time, because the layers will overlap themselves, and it will just give you a muddled impression of what's going on. So just select one opportunity layer. After we choose the opportunity layer of interest, we're going to click on one of the child population layers. I'm first going to start with the white child population. And when I do that, it creates a proportional dot map that overlays the opportunity map. Each dot, there's one dot for every census tract, and what you really want to look at is the relative size of the dots across space and in relation to the opportunity map. So larger dots reflect a larger number of white children living in those areas, while smaller dots reflect a smaller number of white children. And what you can see here in Milwaukee is the fairly large number of white dots in these outlying areas, denoting large numbers of white children in those areas. But if we look in the lower opportunity areas, those denoted in the lighter yellow color, the dots are very small, indicating that small numbers of white children are living in those areas. So take a look at that. I'm going to try and make it a little bit bigger for you. You can zoom in and out with your mouse. So I'm about to now switch this to look at black children. Where do black children live? This is white children. I'm going to turn that off, and now click on black children. And you can see the very, very different distribution in terms of where the larger dots are located. Most of the larger dots for black children are in this southeastern section of the metropolitan area, which mostly corresponds with the city of Milwaukee. I'm going to flip back and forth again just to show you that contrast. This is black children, and this is white children. I think you can see the really distinct contrast. While we're in here, I'm also going to just show you what we see with Hispanic children. For Hispanic children, you'll be able to see the concentration in the southern part, of the city, and also some in the Waukesha area as well. Now, I showed you, I'm going to go back to white children just for this part of the demonstration. I showed you previously that if you click on a tract, it'll bring up information about the opportunity structure in that particular tract. You can also click on a dot within a tract, and when that happens, sometimes it's a little hard to click on, yes. If you click on a dot, it'll bring up information about the child population living within that tract. So in this particular tract, which you recall is a very high opportunity area tract, we have about 1,800 total child population, and about 1,400 of them are white. Below this information, we have a pie chart that illustrates visually that most of the children in this tract are white. Once you've created the map, I also want to reiterate that like the opportunity layers, you only want to put on one child layer at a time. Once again, you can physically put on more than one layer, but they will overlap with each other, and you definitely do not want to do that. So only one child layer at a time, only one opportunity layer at a time. Once you've created the map that you like, I suggest going back and putting on the legend button instead of the content button. It's just a little bit cleaner. Once you've made your selections, it'll show you the legends for what each size dot corresponds to in terms of the number of children of that race ethnicity, and once again, give you the color coding for the Child Opportunity Index. Once you've made your map, you can also do a number of other things with it. You can share it. Clicking here, you can bring up a URL link to that map that if you could send to yourself or someone else. so that they could go directly to this map. You could also embed the entire map in your own website by copying this embed code. It gives you a couple different options for how it might display on your own site. You can print the map. You also have a couple different measuring tools if that's something that would be useful. You can measure an area in terms of square miles. You can measure the length of a distance between one area and another. You can also find the latitude and longitude of a particular area. I'm just going to show you how you might use this measurement tool in terms of finding length. You click on this measuring tool there, and you just double-click anywhere within the map, go somewhere else, double-click again. Oops, I'm sorry. Oh, having a little trouble with that. All right, I'll let you try that on yourself. We're having a little trouble with that on our own site, but I think it has to do with our particular hookup. In any case, you can find area, length, or location. And another thing that you can do, I'm going to go back to the home size right there. Sorry about that, is that you can zoom in and find a particular address or place. So I'm going to just put in, just say 10 Main Street, Milwaukee, because I assume there's a Main Street everywhere, and click on that, and that will zoom you right into that particular address. If you want to find information on a particular area of interest, you can then click on the polygon or the area around that address, and it'll bring up that same information about the opportunity of the neighborhood around that particular address. So I think that looking at these maps gives a really good visual sense of the geography of opportunity and also how children of different races and ethnicities are distributed often inequitably across those areas of opportunity. But the maps can be a little difficult to summarize in just a few words. So one of the things that we did was we created a visualization to supplement these maps to allow you to summarize the data. And you can look at that visualization by going back to the Diversity Data Kids website, excuse me, going to the home section, the main part of the site, and then scrolling down to under Spotlight and News, there's a section on the top right-hand side that says Explore Data with Interactive Visualizations. If you click there, it'll bring up a number of visualizations that you could explore based on data in Diversity Data Kids. We're going to just look at this top one, the distribution of children by race, ethnicity across neighborhood opportunity level. If you click on that, it'll open up a page. The top is just introductory information, but the bottom part is what we want to focus on. This is an interactive bar chart that shows the percent of children of different races and ethnicities that are located in areas of different opportunity across each of the 100 largest metropolitan areas individually or for those 100 largest metros combined. So let me just talk you through what we're seeing right now. This is for the 100 largest metro areas combined, and you see what share of children of different race or ethnicity are located in the very low opportunity areas of those metros, the low opportunity areas all the way up to the very high opportunity areas. Let's just focus on the very low opportunities first. The dark blue bar shows that for whites, only 9% of white children are located in the very lowest opportunity areas of their neighborhoods, just 9%. In contrast, 32% of Hispanic children are in the very lowest opportunity neighborhoods, and 40% of Black children are in the very lowest opportunity neighborhoods. In contrast, if we go to the other end of the opportunity spectrum and look at very high opportunity neighborhoods, 30% of white children are in the very highest opportunity neighborhoods compared to 10% of Hispanic children and 7% of Black children. Now you can customize this bar chart yourself, that's why we've designed it. So you can come up here and choose a particular metro of interest. We've been talking about Milwaukee, so I'm going to choose Milwaukee from the 100 largest metropolitan areas. You can also look at the overall index or each of the three main sub-indices, education, health and environment, socioeconomic. So I'm going to keep on the overall index for now, and you can select one or more race ethnicities. I think right now I'm going to turn off the Hispanic bar just to give us a contrast between the whites and the Black children. And what you see is a very, very different pattern between where white and Black children are located in metropolitan Milwaukee in terms of opportunity neighborhoods. For white children, only 2% are located in the very lowest opportunity neighborhoods of Metro Milwaukee, 2%. In contrast, 60% of Black children are in those very lowest opportunity neighborhoods, 2% versus 60%. So Black children are about 30 times as likely to live in the very lowest opportunity neighborhoods of Metro Milwaukee than are white children. So what have we learned so far? What did we discover? We wanted to look at how child opportunity is structured in Metro Milwaukee and hypothesize that child opportunity is not structured by place. But in fact, we found that to be false. The child opportunity there is very structured by place. There are dramatically different levels of opportunity across Metro Milwaukee, and in general, we find most of the lowest opportunity areas corresponding roughly to the city of Milwaukee. Secondly, we looked at whether children of different races and ethnicities are distributed equally across lower or higher opportunity neighborhoods. We hypothesized that they were distributed relatively equally, but in fact, that's also false. Black and Hispanic children are much more likely to live in lower opportunity areas than are white children. In fact, we just found for Metro Milwaukee that Black children are 30 times more likely to live in the very lowest opportunity neighborhoods compared to white children. And we looked at first at the 100 largest areas combined, and we found that while not as extreme as Metro Milwaukee, in general we see a similar pattern of inequity relative to opportunity for Black and Hispanic children relative to white children. So what we want to do right now is give you just a very brief chance to explore a little bit on your own. We know that we do not have enough time, unfortunately, to give you to explore the actual mapping, but I very much encourage you to do that. Instead, what we'd like you to do is just take a minute or two to click into that interactive bar chart, and I believe that John is going to post into the chat section of WebEx exactly what the URL is that you can click in to the interactive bar charts and explore for just a minute or two. Choose a metropolitan area of interest to you, choose the overall index, or if you like, you can choose one of the sub-indices and select one or more race ethnicities to explore. When you do that, we would like, if you feel up to it, if you're brave, to chat into the chat box an observation that you've made about what you found. For example, if you were to look at Detroit, Metro Detroit, you might say we find that Black children are almost 12 times as likely to live in very low opportunity neighborhoods than are white children. Or you might just say that 47% of Black children in Metro Detroit are in very low opportunity neighborhoods. But just take a minute to click into that bar chart, play around with it a little bit, and chat in just one sentence about something that you found.
For those who didn't see it, you should see a link in the chat window or chat panel. It should take you directly to the page that Nancy mentioned.
Just take another 30 seconds, and then we'll just debrief a little bit about that. Okay, great. We're going to move on now. We see some people chatting in about what they found in Chicago, in Boston, in DC, and other findings about Milwaukee. So we know this is not very much time to play with it, but we hope that it's something that's useful to you to summarize what you can find out from the opportunity maps, in addition to playing with the maps themselves, which we definitely encourage you to do. I think that maps are, kind of intuitively interesting to everybody, particularly to students. So we've done some work now about testing the hypotheses, and I'm going to turn the program back over to Lindsay right now to discuss about how you might explain the findings by using some of these findings in particular assignments in your classroom.
Great, thank you, Nancy. So hopefully everyone has fun starting to test it out, and you'll be interested in exploring the site more. We are very interested to hear from you about how you might be doing this, and would really appreciate you getting in touch with us, and also really welcome you, even after our question opportunity today, to get in touch with us and to chat about any of this or brainstorm together about how you might use this in your teaching. So just very quickly, I wanted to talk of a few ways that I've used this or that I know others have used this, and also just tell you very briefly a couple of ways that this work, the Diversity Data Kids data and maps and equity assessments, have been used outside of teaching too, and those examples are often relevant when I'm teaching. So I have found this useful, whether it's in a large group class discussion, I pose a question, or we come with the hypotheses and discuss them, and then we test them, and then we come back. This works for large group discussion. It works for small group discussion. I've asked students to incorporate this in oral presentation on a number of different particular issues, or if we're diving deep into a place. Certainly this can be used in a sort of debate format. We've done poster presentations. A data memo is one way I'll talk about a little bit more in depth. Policy briefs, research papers, mapping presentations. So these are all, in one way or another, ways that myself or colleagues have used Diversity Data Kids in our teaching. So for example, I've used this in a policy data analysis memo where I've asked students to dive in before a group discussion. So they really get into some questions around, and I usually give them a choice. I've had them, for example, compare neighborhood and school segregation patterns for a particular metropolitan area. I've asked them to use at least 2 different measures of segregation, explore the indices. That's not the Child Opportunity Index, but just to give you a flavor of some of the things we've done on other parts of the site. And then for a Child Opportunity Index focused example, I've asked them to choose a metropolitan area, really dive into what the index is describing, really understanding the results for that metropolitan area, and then helping them to explore some of the tools and giving them some hints around how to do that. And then we've come together and had discussions about it, and then they've really taken another dive into that in order to write, in this one I've done in a group data memo format. So they've all done this on their own, we've had a discussion about it, and then they together are writing a memo around this final assignment, which is asking them either to compare neighborhood and school segregation patterns or to look at the Child Opportunity Index. I have another colleague who I've developed a session of a course for, and we really dove into the policy equity assessment part of the site, and they did a mini policy equity assessment and really looked at either in a poster presentation or in a narrative form, looking at their findings and recommendations for a particular policy. So they used this setup of logic, capacity, and research evidence to really dive into a particular policy they had been exploring. That one was then, of course, on research and action for eliminating health inequities, and the one I was talking about, the data analysis memo, was for an undergraduate course I taught on essentially child public health. So these are a number of ways in which, as I said, myself and colleagues have used this. We look forward to talking to this more in questions. And this is just to give you a sense of other applications, and I won't go into detail here, but we've had a number of either health institutions or public health departments or social services really focus in on the Child Opportunity Index as a way of taking assessment and making some decisions about the kinds of things that they want to do, or convincing funders or other partners to get on board. It's been used to help meet community data reporting requirements, for example, for the Affordable Care Act or for the HUD affirmatively furthering fair housing assessments. So there's lots of ways in which it's been used and lots of ways in which it can be used in teaching, and we're really excited to hear your thoughts, your questions, and as I said, really looking forward to hearing how you have used it or how you are thinking about using it. And so we look forward to chatting in questions or raising your voice and certainly getting in touch with us in the future. We'd be happy to brainstorm with you, and we'd be very happy to hear from you about how you're using the site. Thank you.
All right, and with that, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to use the Q&A panel. We'll have this open. There are currently no questions, but please feel free to type in any questions. We'll try to monitor the chat just in case anybody puts them there as well. Nothing so far is coming in. I'll look in another minute or so, but I guess before wrapping up, I just wanted to say thank you to both Dr. Rosenfeld and Ms. McArdle for presenting on DDK today. If anyone has any further questions and would like to either rewatch part or all of today's webinar, we do plan to post it. I believe DDK does as well. We will have it on ssdan.net in the coming days. We will probably also send it out by email once it's posted. If you have any other questions, I also encourage you to email us at ssdan@ssdan.net. Again, that is ssdan@ssdan.net. And on this page, hopefully you can see our social media accounts. Please feel free to follow us. You can find out any information there. We do have a couple questions, it looks like. First question is, how and when would we be able to use this to share with others? Be able to access this and to share with others. I'm a little confused if that is in reference to a video of this presentation or if that has to do with the actual site. As far as the video, as I said, it'll be posted online in the coming days, and we will also email it out to you. I believe the DDK site should be wide open. As far as I know, there are no memberships or different walls requiring subscription. And then there's another question about, all right, Nancy and Lindsay, if you're still there, can you talk about the survey methodology behind the numbers? I believe it was mentioned briefly. I think this might have something to do with the Child Opportunity Index and the Neighborhood Index. If you could talk a little bit more about those and how they were developed.
Sure. So if you're talking particularly about the Child Opportunity Index, there are 19 different indicators that make up the Child Opportunity Index, and they come from really a wide variety of different sources. So the methodology behind them differs depending on each source. A good chunk of them come from the American Community Survey from the census, and so that information about the methodology is probably even known to you, but easily available on the census website. Other information comes from the Environmental Protection Agency, information that's come from individual school districts. So that tends to be administrative data, not survey data. So it really depends. If you look at our technical documentation, we have extensive information for each of the 19 indicators. It tells you exactly how it's defined, what the source is, and what's the relevant research literature that supports what is our hypothesized impact on child opportunity. So I direct you definitely to the technical documentation.
Great, thank you, Nancy. And this is Lindsay. Certainly be happy to answer other questions, but I also just wanted to mention that we have a regular newsletter that comes out of diversityDataKids.org, and it's easy to sign up on the site. Just sign up for the newsletter, and you'll get all kinds of updates, and when we have a new fact sheet that comes out or a new article or anything related to the site, it really is a nice way to stay updated on all the things going on, when new indicators are added, when a new policy equity assessment is added, et cetera. And then also there's a contact us part, and we would love either now in chat or raising your voice or through the site to hear about how you end up using the site, how you've used it before, what you found, so that we can really create a rich community of folks who are using this in their work and sharing with each other how to use it in their work.
All right, I think that's it. Thank you so much to both of our presenters, and thank you for all the participants joining us today. Thank you, and goodbye, everyone.